Welcome to this Live at 5 paint along. Today we are doing the cow. This is actually the first of a new series of paint alongs that I'm starting. That's going to be all farm animals, which I thought would be fun for the month of January. My name is Allie. If you are new here, I'm so happy that you found me and that you are watching this live demo. I am also excited that I figured out how to do these demos horizontally. Well, actually, I think Facebook changed something because we used to have to do all the lives in vertical format, and now we can actually get a lot more in here doing it sideways. So excited about that. Hopefully it'll make it a little bit clearer for you to see. Hi Tilly, I'm glad everybody is jumping in. Hi Beverly. Yeah, please feel free to say hello in the comments. I love seeing where everybody is from. And just, yeah, let me know that you are here. Hi, Lucy in Kansas and Holly. We have so many regulars here. I love seeing it, and I am excited for this one. A lot of you got the download of the outlines, so I guess that's something I didn't mention yet, but this demo is totally free. But if you would like to paint along with me, you can actually download the outlines of this cow that I have here. And your demo or your download also comes with the reference image and the paint list. So I will be posting that link in the comments. But until then, you can also find it on my website, which is Allie K Studio, and you can just find it under online classes. So I made that real easy. Now I have all of the downloads in one place on my website. So you can actually check out all the downloads from paint alongs there. So yeah, thank you guys for checking in, and thank you for sharing this demo. If you are enjoying it, I always appreciate that. So why don't we just get started? So I'm going to adjust the camera here so you can see my reference image and my painting. Make sure we get it all in there, which is a lot easier now that I can have this in horizontal format. I'm so excited about that. I want to give you a really good view of everything. I think you can see it all pretty well there. And so what I did is I transferred the outlines using transfer paper. If you don't have transfer paper, you can always just color the back of the download page with some graphite or chalk, whatever works, and then you can just trace over the outlines. So that is another way to do it. So I traced over them, and then I took my skinny little script liner brush. These are great for outlining, and I just painted over those outlines using a purple that I made from white, alizarin crimson, and Payne's gray. And I should mention we are using golden fluid acrylics for this demo, but if you don't have the fluid acrylics, if you have more of a heavy-bodied paint, you may just end up adding a little bit of extra water to your paint to thin it out a little bit. But my process kind of works. It will work with any of the paints that you might have on hand. So these are the colors that I'm using and the type that I'm using, but feel free to use what you have. So yeah, and the purple outlines, it does not really matter if you mix yours using different colors. I just like to have a neutral color that, you know, isn't going to be too bright, but it's just going to show me where my lines are and cover up my pencil marks. So yep, that's what we've got so far. So we're going to start out by finding shadows. So in my early stages of my painting, I thin my paint with water, and I'm just going to make a purple wash, and I'm going to use alizarin crimson and Payne's gray for that. So I'm just watering this paint down, making it nice and thin. It's about equal parts alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. And I'm just gonna start looking for the dark areas. So when I did my outlining, I was kind of outlining the major shapes and the major highlights and shadows. Hi Debbie, thanks for watching. Okay, so here we go. So I'm looking for those darkest areas. I see some dark shapes on the ear here, and I have a tendency to kind of work left to right, kind of upper left to right, and part of that is just kind of like the way that I read, I guess, you know, because I'm right-handed, I just kind of have a tendency to work that way across the panel, but you don't really have to. But that's just kind of how I like to work my way around, or I find myself working my way around. Got some darks in the eye there. So I'm comparing each side of these lines that I have laid down for myself, and I'm looking to see which side of the line is the dark side and which side is the light side. And so I'm washing them in to reflect that. And sometimes I'm ignoring some of the lines, like some of these little lines that are wrinkles. I don't need to really show those too much right now. Those will show later. So I'm just kind of doing a thin wash that's going to dry quickly for me as I layer on top of this. And you guys that are watching live, feel free to jump into the comments and let me know if you have any questions about what I'm doing. If you're new here, I'm so glad that you found me, and you might kind of be wondering about this process, why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So please feel free to ask about that. Hi, Darlene in Texas and Letitia. So glad you guys are here this week for this very first demo of 2021. I'm so excited for this. Many of you have been watching my demos all along. I started doing these live at 5 demos right around when things kind of shut down last year, back in March, or maybe it was April, I think. But it's been so much fun, and it's one of those little mini blessings that you see out of all this craziness that's happening. Is I don't know if I would have thought to start doing these, and I am just thrilled with being able to share this with you guys every week. Hi, Susan in South Carolina. Let's see. Deb is asking, how do you decide what color the underpainting should be? So this stage of the underpainting, it actually doesn't really matter too much. I'm just kind of picking a neutral. So this is a neutral made from alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. It's kind of just like a dark, purple that's not too vibrant. But you could also use just a brown. You could just really use any neutral color, because all of this is going to get covered up. We're just looking for shadows at this point. So, you kind of work with what you have, but this is kind of my go-to recipe that I use over and over again, the alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. Those of you that are in my portrait class, I know in that class I teach the underpainting shadows using burnt umber, which works just fine as well. But then after we put this layer down of the shadows, then we're going to wash in a complementary color underpainting. So complementary means opposite on the color wheel. So the areas where we see cool, we're going to lay warm down first. And the areas where we see warm, we're going to lay cool down first. And you'll see kind of why I do that as we move along. There's a little bit of flexibility there. I don't always pick the true opposite, but I generally do kind of, the warm, cool opposite. So I hope that clears it up a little bit for you, and I think you'll see more as we continue with this demo. And I am checking back at the comments. If I miss your comment, I apologize. They're kind of going through quickly now because I am doing this in horizontal format. It's actually not showing me as many comments at a time. So I'm trying to check back as I work. And maybe eventually I will just have to have somebody reading me those. That helps me on these demos as we are getting more and more people watching them every week. We're getting a lot of comments, which is awesome. I wish I could answer all of them, but I'm also trying to do a painting, right? So I'm just continuing. I gotta mix up a little bit more of my purple color and add a little more water to it. It doesn't matter if it completely matches my first purple tone, because like I said, we're just looking for shadows here. Let's see, Karen says, do you ever paint on canvas rather than board? Not unless I absolutely have to. I don't like painting on canvas. I like a smooth surface. So the only time I use canvas, or when I have to use canvas, like for example, if it's something I have to roll up and ship, there is a canvas that's not really real artist canvas. It's kind of like a industrial coating type material. It's called TFR. T is in truck, F is in fireman, and R is in rain. And it's made by a company called Indiana Coated Fabrics. And I love their material because it's super smooth and you can roll it up. So that if I have to do canvas, that's what I do. That also works really well for murals because you can roll up the material and actually have it installed on a wall by a wallpaper installer using the same process as wallpaper. And then you can actually paint your mural in your studio. So that's what I try to use for my murals too. Although I'm not doing a whole lot of murals anymore. I'm kind of staying busy with teaching, but I've got some big ones coming up that I'm planning on doing that with. All right, so you can see we're starting to get our form of this cow. Just washing in with this one color. I haven't changed my color yet, and I haven't changed my brush yet. So this is a square tip brush. I'm not picky about my brush brand. This is a Fine Touch from Hobby Lobby. So it's not a real spendy brush, but I just try to take good care of them, and I just throw them away when they are not so great anymore. So it's kind of my secret. I always keep my brushes in water too. I know sometimes people say you're not supposed to do that, but I feel like it's worse if the paint dries on the brush than having it sit in water. So that's what I do. I guess this is all one big shadow here. All right. This is kind of all dark too. Just gonna do an extra little wash right here. And then we're gonna keep moving on. All right, so we got a little bit of shadow everywhere. And now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna push the dark areas a little bit darker. So now I'm going to go in using the same two colors. I'm using that alizarin crimson and Payne's gray, but now I'm gonna go in with very little water. And so I'm gonna layer back over and look for the areas that seem the darkest. So I've got some pretty dark areas in the eyes. It's always nice to kind of get those eye shapes in right away too, because it just gives the animal or the person some life right away. So I think one of the biggest tips I can give is to not be afraid to go super dark. Looking at your comments here, let's see, I'm trying to scroll down here. Martha said, how do you make the smooth white to cover the board? A smooth roller? Actually, I just water down my gesso and then I sand it between coats, and that works pretty well. Hi, Janet. All right. Sorry, trying to catch your questions. But yeah, sometimes I use a roller on a bigger piece, but on these small ones, I just water my gesso down. I usually do like 3 coats of watered down gesso, and if you sand a little bit between them, it'll lay down nice and smooth. So again, if you're following along, I'm just using alizarin crimson and Payne's gray right now. That's the same 2 colors that I laid down my initial wash with. I'm just putting it a little bit more opaque now, so that it's going to be almost black, but I never ever use black because black is boring. And I would much rather make it a nice luscious purple than just boring black. So I don't even buy black. There's no reason for it. You can make your really nice strong blacks using alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. And sometimes if I want it to be a really dark black, I might add a little bit of phthalo green in that mixture as well. And I'm so excited for this farm animal series. If any of you have any great farm animal photos that you think would make good paintings, if you email those to me, Allie at alliekstudio.com, and if I choose yours, you'll get your download absolutely free, of course. But I would love to be able to have the chance to maybe paint from one of your photographs. So if you have any good ones, I'm specifically looking for, I think, a rooster and a pig. But they have to be photos you took, not ones you found online. So I would love to see them if you've got any good ones. All right, continuing, just looking for those super dark black areas. Still have the same brush and just pushing those darkest darks. And then pretty soon we'll do that underpainting wash that I was talking about. I need to get a little bit more alizarin crimson. And if you guys are enjoying this demo, I would love it if you would hit that share button. That helps me out so much. Been finding a lot of new painting friends on here lately, and a lot of them it's because people like you shared my demo and they were able to discover these free classes. So I always appreciate that if you are willing to share this video. You can see my new black mixture is a little bit more red than my other one, but it really doesn't matter. So we're not looking at tone, we're just looking at value. So value is like light and dark. And again, like what gives a painting a lot of power, I guess, and dimension is correctly putting those lights in the really light areas and the darks in the really dark areas. And sometimes I think we're afraid to do that. We have a tendency to kind of mush it all together and end up with a lot of mid-tones. But when we do that, it just really takes away from the effect of the painting. So if you see it as black in the reference image, or I mean as a super dark color, then don't be afraid. Go ahead, put it in there super dark. Same thing with the super lights. Okay, we've almost got all of our toning in here, I think. I think we've got probably enough to start moving on to our next step. Yeah, I think we're just about there. Push it a little bit more. Okay, and getting all of this underpainting in actually makes the rest of the painting go super fast, because this is like the bones of the painting. And once we get all the bones in the right places, then when we add the rest of it, it's gonna just like, you'll be amazed how quickly it goes. All right, okay, so I would really like for this to be dry. It's maybe not totally. I think I'm gonna wash in the background first, and then hopefully our cow painting, the underpainting part of the cow, will be dry. So because I'm going to do the background blue, I'm going to do my wash in burnt orange. And if you've seen my demos before, you've probably seen this recipe that I use quite a bit. I like to make an orange using alizarin crimson and Hansa yellow opaque. It just makes a really nice burnt orange. I don't really love super intense bright orange, so I like this combination. And I'm just gonna loosely put this in. It's a little too dark. I'm gonna add a little water to thin it out. It probably looks brighter on your screen than what I'm seeing, but it's gonna be actually quite similar to the color of the cow. And that's going to be kind of fun, having that poke through in the background, because it's going to unify the background with the colors that we're going to use in the foreground on the cow. So that's part of why I'm choosing this burnt orange color, because I like to kind of marry my colors together. It gives the painting some unity. Looking more at your questions here. Crystal's asking, do you have a list of paint colors that you feel are important to keep in your arsenal? Yes, Crystal, I do. And I have that download on my website. It's actually right on the homepage of my website. If you just scroll down, you can see it'll say, get my list of my favorite colors. And I have about, I don't know, maybe eight or nine colors that I use all the time over and over again. So those are the ones that I recommend buying. Yeah, and you can find that right there. So I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter down here because my blue is going to be a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow, I think, and thin it out just a pinch more. So I like to have my underpainting kind of mimic the value of the overpainting. So if it's a very dark area, I'll lay my underpainting down darker. And if it's going to be a lighter area, I put my underpainting in a little bit lighter. Just helps me not fight it so much. Hi, Angela, welcome. If any of you are getting here late and you did the download of the outlines and you want to paint with me, if you feel like you can't really catch up at this point, you can always watch this as a replay. This will be on my page as a replay. So don't feel like you have to rush. You can always just watch the demo now and paint along with the replay afterwards. Okay, so that is our underpainting for the background. And now I'm going to do the underpainting for the cow. And I think I'm going to use Permanent Dark Violet for the cow underpainting. And Permanent Dark Violet is one of my favorite colors, and it is what I use underneath skin tones as well. The skin tones are kind of like browns and reds too. So this color looks really nice under anything brown or skin color, or like a peach or a brown. Letitia's asking, what is the background on the actual photograph? Sky? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that seems right. This was actually a free image that I got on PixArt, and then I did some editing to it to make it how I wanted it. Okay, so underpainting for the cow, I think I'm going to do mostly Permanent Dark Violet. I'm going to thin it out with some water. Yeah, we're going to do this. And I might do a few pops of something else. But I'm going to start with Permanent Dark Violet. And I'm just going right over everything, not worrying about edges or really anything else. So I'm not painting this like in between the shadows. I'm just going right over everything. It's just one big wash. And if your underpainting is a little bit wet, that could be a problem because it could pick up those shadows that we put down, but hopefully you got yours dry enough that that's not going to be a problem. You can see where I'm letting this purple go right into the background. I'm not being like super crisp about my edges of where the cow starts and the background stops, because we want this all to kind of play together and we want it to stay loose. And so part of that is being loose in this underpainting. And I'm moving kind of quick to get this to dry because we're going to start layering on top of it. Put a little bit here, and then I think just to kind of keep it fun, I'm going to do a little bit of blue on there too. So I think like this area that's going to be white, which is really kind of a yellowy white, I'm going to do a little bit of phthalo blue underneath that. Phthalo blue is a super strong, ridiculously strong color, so you hardly need any of it. I barely touched it, and it's going to be too dark already. Ooh, got a clump of it in there. Scratch that off. Okay. But yeah, I think it'll be just fun to put some of that blue in because we're going to use this blue in our background when we layer on top of the orange. So that's where I'm kind of being playful with these colors and using colors for the underpainting that I know I'm going to put in the overpainting, like I mentioned. So we've got that much. Now I'm hoping that my underpainting is going to be pretty dry. I'm going to blot mine a little bit because I want to put some of that color in. And the brush strokes in that underpainting really don't matter, so I don't really care if I blot them up. I want my brush strokes to show in the overpainting, but for the underpainting, it's really just about getting the color on there. So I'm just trying to get it to dry up because we don't want this first layer to be blending in with the top colors. That's just gonna be bad news. So I guess while I'm kind of waiting here, if anybody has any questions specifically about what we're doing here or tools, please feel free to jump right in and ask those now. And I'm gonna mix up a blue for my background. I think the blue I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to do phthalo blue and white for the most part, and then I'm going to make it a little bit darker over on this side and add a little bit of, I think, Payne's gray. But I'm going to start over here with phthalo blue and white. I'm getting a bigger brush, a little bit bigger anyways. And I want to make sure that this blue mixture is very clean. Make sure you don't have anything in your white contaminating it because that will kind of kill your color. And I'm also going to add a little bit of glaze to this mixture because I want to let some of my underpainting show through. And everybody always asks about my glaze. I'm not picky about glaze, but I am using Liquitex Matte Medium. And partly I like a matte finish. I just don't want it to be super shiny. Vivian is asking, how are you able to get the exact colors you want? You know, I honestly think it's just practice. I think it's just mixing these colors over and over and over again. They just kind of become like your best friends and you just kind of figure out how to make them pretty quickly because you've done them so many times. So I think my number one tip there is to just plain paint a lot. I wish I could say there was like a quick fix secret there, but that's probably the best tip I can give is do a whole lot of paintings and mix a lot of colors. All right, so I'm going to start dropping this into the background and I'm putting these brush strokes down really quick. You see that? I'm letting some of that orange kind of speckle through my brush strokes. And I'm leaving on purpose a little bits of orange kind of wrapping around the figure. And also I kind of like to do that like around the outside of the panel too. But I don't want it to be like a perfect orange stripe around the figure because that feels a little bit too planned. So kind of just letting it dance around this guy or girl. And you know, just don't be afraid. Lay those brush strokes down and change up the direction of them. Oh, you can see it's starting to, my underpainting is starting to be a little too wet, so I might need to move somewhere else. I'm gonna move over here and hopefully it's not wet over there. But yeah, just lay them down and walk away. Don't overthink putting these brush strokes down. Again, this is phthalo blue and white. That's all I've got in this mixture. Now I want to make this a little bit darker just because I don't really want my whole background to be the same. So I'm going to add a little bit more phthalo blue and a little bit of Payne's gray, which is going to make it a little bit more of a neutral. Payne's gray is more of a grayed out blue. So I just want to mix it up a little bit and I'm going to do that over here. can see a little bit of difference, but I'm not really blending this blue into my color. I'm just kind of dropping it in next to it. And I may go back in and fill in a little bit more of my background, but I always say err on the side of putting less of the overpainting in, because you can't bring back that underpainting, but you can always add more of the overpainting. So leave more of the underpainting to begin with, and then cover up more later if you feel like you want to. Okay, so now that we've got that background in, I think we can start putting in some of the cow color. So why don't we start by finding the shapes that are going to be white. So up at the top here, this white, like I mentioned before, it's not really white. It's more of like a yellowy white. So we're going to make that using white and a little bit of Hansa Yellow Opaque, and then a little bit of alizarin crimson to tone it down a little bit. And I'm gonna see how that looks. And then I'm also going to add some glaze in there to let some of my underpainting show through. Now, Hansa Yellow Opaque is super strong. You don't need as much of it as you would other yellows. But we're gonna start with this more on the yellow side, and then I'll add some more whiter highlights as I layer on top. So I'm just going to just loosely start laying this down, and I'm thinking about the direction of the hair or the fur, and I'm thinking about leaving some of that blue underpainting showing through. So I'm just gonna let that be. I'll probably go back in and brighten some of that up later, but for right now, I'm just gonna put that first layer down, and then I'm going to look here and see where else I've got some of this yellowy white coming through. Top of the nose, and a little bit over here on the side. So I'm just kind of jumping around the painting, looking for everywhere that I see this color, and I can just drop it in right away. Now my white that's underneath the mouth is not as warm, so I might cool that down later, but I think I'll just put a little bit of this warm white in for right now, and then I'll probably cool that down with some blue. But this is just gonna help to give me the shape of the mouth. So I've got that under control. We've got some little whiskers here that I'm putting in, but I'm not gonna put all of them in because that will look too weird. So I'm just putting a little indication of them. Got a little bit of the white up here. All right. Actually, I see some highlights on this eye, but they're not quite that white. I'm gonna wait on that. Okay, so now I wanna put kind of the orangey highlights in across the board. So I'm going to make this kind of bright orangey tone using white, Hansa Yellow Opaque, and Pyro Red Light. And you guys that have done my portraits class, you might notice that these are like the same colors I'm using when I paint skin. So it's really not that different. And burnt umber is gonna go in there too. So it's burnt umber, Hansa Yellow Opaque, Pyro Red Light, and white. And that's my 4-color recipe for skin too. So we're gonna put these bright highlights in. I'm adding a little bit of glaze to my mixture and looking for those brighter sections. And I'm also leaving a lot of that purple showing, right? Because we don't wanna lose it. Let's see, Ellen's asking, how do you decide the order of the colors that you choose? Trying to understand that a little bit better, the order. So do you mean like what areas I paint in first, I'm guessing? And I guess it varies. Like with this one, I don't usually do the background at the beginning like I did, but that was partly kind of a time thing because we needed it to be dry. So that was the area that was dry. but usually I like to kind of pick the general overall color. So I would normally probably start with the brown and get some of that in first, just to kind of give it more of like a realistic feel of what the ultimate colors will be. I know that in this stage, as we're layering the actual colors on top of the opposite colors, it kind of goes through like this weird, awkward stage where it's like in between the two and it's kind of hard to figure out what's what. And I know that can be challenging. So I usually just try to like press on and kind of figure out the shapes. And then as you layer more and more in, it will start to kind of come together. That was a very long answer. I hope that was helpful. Do I go from light to dark? Well, actually, I put all those really dark shadows in first, right? So we found those in the underpainting. But now, as we're working with the actual color in what I would call the overpainting, I'm kind of starting in the middle. So it's a little bit different when I've got completely white sections of an animal. I wanted to get those in first just because it would help to make more sense. But now with these brown red tones, I'm kind of starting in the middle, and I'm going to push the lighter areas a little bit lighter, and then I'm going to push the darker areas a little bit darker. And that's kind of how I treat portraits too. It just kind of, it like speeds up your process if you kind of start in the middle and work both directions. That's part of why I like to have an underpainting, why I wouldn't want to work on just a plain white canvas. Because if you've got some color on there, it just makes the rest of it a lot easier for you. All right, so I do a lot of squinting to kind of compare what I've got here compared to the reference image. Patty says, I call that the adolescent stage. Yeah, I call it the ugly teenager stage or awkward teenager stage. So yes, that's exactly right, Patty. And these paintings just like, they just have to go through it, right? Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it. Okay. So I kind of put in most of those in between highlights. Now I'm going to push those a little bit darker. So I'm going to add more pyro red and more burnt umber to this mixture. So you can keep working in the same puddle, just add more of those two. So you want to have less white in there, and it's going to be a little bit warmer and darker. I'm going to see how this looks. Actually, I might need to pick a new puddle. I have too much white in that puddle. I'm going to move somewhere else. So I'm going to do pyro red, burnt umber, and maybe just a speck of yellow. Maybe you don't even really need any white in there. Yeah, that's closer to what I want, actually. Okay, so this is my next color that's going to be a little bit darker, like I said. We're going to layer some of that in. So you want to make sure it looks like a notch or two darker than what you had before. If it looks very similar to what you had before, then you need to try to make it a little bit darker by adding more red and brown to it. There's really a lot of color going on in this painting. I thought this was going to be an easy one, but man, there's a lot going on here. It's going to be fun though. I might just end up going a little bit over on time. I try to keep all these demos down to just an hour, but I also want to get them all done. So we're going to make it work. Okay, so this is all really dark, so I haven't done like any highlights over here. And see, this is like a dark shadow here that I'm just kind of letting the purple be what it is there. All right, so now I feel like we need to do some stuff in the nose here, right? So we've got like these kind of grayish brown, kind of yellowy tones in the nose that we need to get in there. So I'm going to make a gray using white, burnt umber, and phthalo blue. We're gonna start with that, see how that works. And some of it is trial and error too. Like you guys were asking how I mix the right colors. Sometimes I mix a color on my palette and it looks right on my palette, and then I put it on the painting and it looks totally wrong. And so then I just have to adjust it. You know, that happens to me too all the time. So don't feel bad if you experience that, because sometimes when a color is compared to other colors, it ends up looking totally different. Okay, so this was white, Payne's gray, and burnt umber. I think that this is going to work. I might need to switch to a smaller brush though. I'm having trouble getting in here. So I'm just kind of putting down the general colors here, and then I'm going to go back and pull out some highlights. A little bit of that. I might need to go a little darker in some places too, but we're gonna start with this. Okay, so I've got that gray in, and now while I've got that gray on my brush, I'm gonna look around and see where else I can drop some of that gray in, because I'm seeing a few other places where it's more gray. I'm seeing some gray kind of along the chin here and in some of these shadows. So I'm just gonna drop a little bit of that into the shadow there. I see a little bit over here in this shadow. I see some up in the ear. This is maybe a little too light. But yeah, paying attention to where else you can use a color when you've got it on your brush helps you to just paint a lot more effectively and to keep your painting unified. All right. Okay, so I see that I'm missing this kind of white highlight band that's below this warm band, and it's actually a little bit more pink. So I'm going to make that using white and a little bit of alizarin crimson. I think I'll put that in there. Yeah. So white and alizarin crimson, I'm going to put that little highlight in. And I might add that in a few other places too. But that's going along the nose right here. Yeah, that makes a little more sense there. I see some more on this edge of the nose. And then we've got a little bit along the mouth there too. I mentioned how I was going to do some cooler whites down here. I'm just dropping it in with that pink for right now. And then I'm going to put a few little pink areas up here in the white too, because I want to just kind of like marry these colors together. There we go. All right, now I'm just looking at our time, see how we're doing here. Okay, we got 15 minutes. We're going to start pulling this thing together. I want to get into the eyes. So I'm going to zoom in on my eyes. Whoop. Zoom in on the eyes so I can see them a little better. This is why I like working from a tablet. And I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller brush so I can get in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to start making a nice dark black. And I'm going to do that using Payne's gray and alizarin crimson, like I mentioned before. I'm almost out of my Payne's gray. Last little drop there. All right, so we're gonna make our nice dark black, and we're gonna shape up those eyes using a small brush here. Okay, so I'm gonna push that nice and dark, looking at the shape of everything that looks really black. I've got some really black areas around the ear that are right next to it, so I'm just gonna put those in right away. So everything that I see around the eye too. So we've got a band of lighter color right there, and then it gets dark again right here. So I paint super loose, but when it comes to getting in details like the eyes, then I get really tight because I want this to all be really accurate. And that's kind of the fun, like, push and pull of my paintings. Some places they're really tight, some places they're really loose. And I think that's what gives it a lot of interest. So now let's move over to this eye, zooming right in on it, and I can see I kind of lost my shape of the eye. So I'm just going to use this nice dark black color to kind of bring that shape of the eye back. Again, this is alizarin crimson and Payne's gray. And then I'm gonna go in and add some fun little reflections around the eye too. But first I need to just kind of get my darks in the right place again because they got a little bit messy there. And that's okay, that's just part of the process of, you know, how this all works. And looking over at my ear too, we've got some more darks that I kind of lost. So since I'm over here right now, I'm just gonna pop those back in, put them in the right places. Since we're already over here. Okay, now let's look at the nostrils. Zoom in on those. And let's make sure those are in the right places. I kind of lost some shape there. Gotta push those back where they belong. This one, it's only dark right up at the top there. And then it's real dark inside the mouth. So we're gonna put that in. Yeah, now it's starting to look a little bit more like a cow. You guys are kind of quiet. I know we've got a whole bunch of you watching, so feel free to ask any questions that you're thinking about. I think we've got some darks in there too. The mouth is a little bit hard to follow because there's like a white edge along the lip. Then we've also got like the hollow of the inside of the mouth. Less is more when it comes to the whiskers. I think you can get a little carried away with the whiskers, and I think that that can kind of kill it if you put those in too dramatically, because the whiskers are very thin, you know. You don't want them to look like big fat whiskers. If anything, don't even put them in, or just put a little tiny indication of them. All right, gets pretty dark down here. So we really haven't used very many colors on this, but you can see how it's really already, you know, starting to look like the photograph. Got a dark shape right here. And another tip I can give is to get away from it. Like normally I would get across the room every now and then and look at my piece. I can't do that while I'm teaching, but I am like leaning back pretty regularly to try to get a better grasp of what's going on here, because it can be really hard when you're like right on top of it. It can be hard to figure out what's going on. And then sometimes when you step away, it's like, oh, all of a sudden it just makes a lot more sense. Also, when you step away, it usually looks better, so that's another reason to do it. Okay, putting these darks in. Now my brush is too small for these darks, but I'm just gonna work with it because this is what I have on in my hand right now. If you are painting with me, I would love to see your painting, and you can post it in the comments here, but I would actually really love for you to post it in my free group called Allie's Paint Friends. So you can join that on my Facebook page here, and that's where all the people who follow my demos, that's where they all post their pieces, and it's fun to see what other people are doing and get some feedback. So please join that group. and share your paintings in there because I love to see them. Okay, so now I want to go back and put a little more detail in the eyes. So we've got some kind of fun, bright magenta colors that are showing up around the eye there. So I'm going to use quinacridone magenta, which is one of my favorite colors from Golden. You just can't mix it. You have to buy it, and it's amazing. And I'm almost out because I need to get more because I use it all the time. But it's a fun color. I'm going to add that with some white. So again, it's quinacridone magenta and white. And I'm going to put some of this around the eye. All right, and that's going to shape up the eye a little bit more too. We're going to put a little reflection on the eye with this color too, I think. Getting that just in the right place is going to be important. I probably didn't do it right there. And there's a little bit of an indication of an eyelash right there that we can include. These little tiny details at the end are where that's what's going to make this pop. So you see how I said I was painting eyes and then I start putting this in the hair, but that's just kind of how I work. So we're going to just jump around here. I see some of it in the mouth. Just dropping this color. So I should say, if you take one of my online classes, those are different from these paint-alongs. The online classes move a lot slower, and in those, I try to design them so they're much more logical. Not that this is totally unlogical, but I definitely jump around a lot in these live demos because they're quick and I try to get a painting done, start to finish in an hour, and it's kind of off the cuff and unplanned. But with the online classes, it's pretty structured, and there's a pretty good rhythm to why I'm doing what I'm doing. So yeah, I'm having fun with this magenta. Can you guys tell? I'm just dropping it in all over the place, but I like it. It's kind of cleaning up the shape of the mouth too. So now let's go back over to this eye. I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna use a little of that magenta to shape up that eye a little bit. Got kind of a little eyelash coming down over here. Now I have some pretty bright highlights around this eye that are going to be kind of like a bright yellowy orange color. And actually we kind of have that throughout that we have not put in yet. So I want to make sure we get those in. Yeah, we've got like 7 minutes left. Should be enough time to drop some of these in. So this bright orange color, I'm going to make, I'm going to make it using my same 4-color recipe I used before. The yellow, Hansa yellow, pyro red, light, burnt umber, light, and white. But we're going to use more of the pyro red and Hansa yellow right now to like brighten this up, make it really pop. And I think this is really gonna make it come alive, this nice bright color. Let's see how this looks. So it's gonna be more so on the right side. Got this, bright eyelid, and I probably need to even go a little bit brighter here with this eyelid, but I'm gonna start with that much, and I'll probably layer on top of it. Zoom out a little bit so I can see it. We've got some of this bright orange along the side of the mouth. Kind of coming down, we've got some bright orange here. Yeah, I need to go even brighter, I think. This is one of those examples where it looks really bright on my palette, and then when I put it on the canvas, it doesn't look as bright. So we'll take care of that. put this on for right now. See how I'm working in kind of like some quick jerky strokes? Part of that is just kind of my style, but Donna's asking, can you use cadmium red light instead of pyro red light? You can if that's all that you have. The difference is cadmium red is more of a cool red. So I would say you'll probably need to use a little bit more Hansa yellow to warm it up a little bit if you're using cadmium red. But if I have my choice when I'm mixing kind of like a warm caramely color, I go for the pyro, and that's the one that I use in skin tones a lot, pyro red light. I think it's one of the more expensive colors, of course, but it is definitely one that I think is worth it, that I use a lot because it's so good in skin. Okay, got that pretty bright. Now I want to pull it even brighter around this eye. So I'm going to add more white to it. Quite a bit more white, actually. Should really brighten up around that eye. I'm going to zoom in on that eye while I do that. This eyelid that I put down is still kind of wet, so I can't really get it as bright as I want. I might have to wipe some of that out to get it. This is why I'm not an oil painter, because I'm always layering, and if I have like wet oil paints, it would just drive me nuts. I mean, I have oil painted and I think they're beautiful, but you have to wait between coats if you try to do the technique that I'm teaching here. You just have to wait between your coats. Okay. I'm gonna put some of this up here. Okay, I want to add some sparkle in the eyes. That's more of like a blue, and there's a little red line of sparkle there too. Maybe I'll get that in first. And I'm going to switch down to a pretty tiny brush, and I'm going to do pyro red light and white. It's going to make like a pretty pinky color, and I'm going to just add that little line of highlight in the eye. And I'm going to do a little bit over here too. And I might need to add a little bit more black in there. Okay, now I want to add some blue highlights. So I'm going to go back to my phthalo blue and white combination and just add some fun little sparkly blue highlights in the eyes, because that's going to look really pretty, reflecting with all the other colors. And they're very tiny little highlights, but it's going to make a big difference. Little highlight there, little dab right there. That might already be too much, but I can tell it helped. I need my eyes to be a little bit drier there, but it's working. We're getting it. Now I want to put some of this around the nose too, because I see that right there, and I think that's going to be fun. Getting some of that blue reflection around the nostrils. Yeah, and then I'm going to make it a little bit darker. I'm actually going to add a little bit of phthalo blue to it. I mean, Payne's Gray, that's that navy blue. And I'm going to use that for some of these blue shadows around the bottom of the nostrils. Ooh, that was a little too dark. See, sometimes I just have to test it and see what I need to change. That was too dark. Just kind of bring that shape back to the nostril. Now underneath this nostril, this is pretty light here. And then let's look at the rest of the shapes in the mouth. We've got a little bit of blue shadow underneath there. Zooming back out to see what else we've got here. I'm just gonna add some little blue around there for the heck of it. Okay, we're getting close to needing to wrap this up. It's 6 o'clock, so I'm gonna do a couple of last little finishing touch dashes here. Part of it's going to be brightening up my whites, especially my whites up at the top. So I'm gonna grab a clean brush and find a clean spot on my palette, and I'm going to grab some white and a little speck of Hansa yellow and a tiny, oh, that wasn't a clean spot on my palette. I need a cleaner spot. Okay, I'm gonna grab some white, a little speck of Hansa yellow, and a little speck of pyro red, but it's gonna be mostly white. And I'm gonna put some really strong pops of this creamy white. But I want it to be a few notches brighter than what we did before. Let's see, we're gonna look for the very brightest areas. So there, see how much brighter that is than what I had? But I kind of built up a base for it. So it's got something to stand up on and it really pops now. But I don't want to do it everywhere because then it loses its impact, right? So I'm just putting a few little of those brightest pops. Look around and see where else it's almost that bright. Up at the top of the nose here, we've got some that's pretty bright. Right here. And that just kind of pulls the nose out at us. It's kind of bright right here, a little bit right there. Okay, we've got pretty bright white right there. All right. Now I always like to do kind of this fun like halo effect around my pieces. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to mix up a blue that's going to be a little bit lighter than what I've got here. And I'm going to make it using pyro red light white. I'm sorry, not pyro red. That's a red, guys. Why would I do that? I'm starting to get tired. Can you tell? I'm going to make this new blue using white and phthalo blue. And I'm going to do just a touch of phthalo green in there too. So it's going to be a little bit more of a teal. And I'm going to do some of these little fun sparkles around the edge. And that's going to kind of make the cow jump out a little bit more, give it a little bit more presence, I guess. Just kind of separate it from the background a little bit. Maybe not separate, because I feel like it's kind of playing with the background when I do this little dance around it. But I just really like to do it. It's like satisfying seeing just kind of this sparkle around him. I'm going to add a little more white in a few places, brighten it up a little bit more. Oh, you know, and I didn't even really add the whiskers in, did I? Maybe I'll just try a little tweak of that. I guess I kind of ignored them. And see, I'm using this blue for the whiskers. Like, it doesn't really matter. But just careful, don't do too much. And I like to kind of mix this up, so I don't want it to be like an even stripe of all the same tones jumping around there. So you want it to kind of vary. Some areas might be a little lighter, some a little bit darker. Some places I might add a little bit more blue. Just kind of have fun with it. But I don't really have like a hard edge around the animal, you know? It's kind of like the animal is becoming part of the background. Probably need a bigger brush. And this is where, remember I said I was probably gonna cover up more of the background from the beginning, like in these later layers, this is where more of that background is getting covered up. Okay, I think this is really close to where I wanted to go with it during this demo. I feel like I still wanted to have some little purpley hairs around the top of his head because I was seeing that in the reference image. And we haven't done that yet. And I know we're over on time, but I'm just gonna take 2 more minutes and add some little purpley tones. So I'm gonna use quinacridone magenta and white and a little bit of permanent dark violet. I just want to add some little bitty tones of this. Let's see. Kathy's saying, what about the left side of the body? Well, you know what? I mean, it's pretty much in shadow. So I'm kind of thinking about just leaving a lot of that purple. We could push some of the darks a little bit darker, but I kind of like just having that purple be there. I think if I had more time, I'd probably push these darks into more of a black tone and maybe cover some of the purple with some grays. But it's not really bothering me right now. And especially if you squint, it's very similar to the reference image. So sometimes I just kind of let it fall off and let the underpainting be the actual painting. We don't always have to cover it. Let's see. Janet's asking, is there a little yellow around the nose? Yeah, there is. We can add a little yellow in there too, guys. You guys want to make this a longer demo, huh? Okay, we're just going to put a few little pops of some purpley little bits right there. Just kind of roughing it up around the ears. I don't want to get too carried away here. I just really wanted to add a little bit of these purple hairs. I could maybe cut into those a little bit more. And actually having some more purple in the over painting will make some of that, more of that purple in the under painting make more sense too. This is darker. See, as I kind of slow down, I start seeing other things I want to tweak. Whoops, and then I get carried away. So let's, somebody stop me soon. And some of the fun of doing these quick paintings is that the shapes don't all need to end up exactly the same either. This is just kind of getting the essence of the cow and having fun with some color. And yeah, that's kind of what we're going for. We'll cover up a little bit more of that. Okay, so you guys want a little bit of yellow on the nose. Yeah, you're right. Let's do that. Okay, so we're gonna go back to that recipe we were using before, which is going to be Hansa yellow, pyro red, and white. And we're just gonna use a little bit more of that Hansa yellow now and lighten that up a little bit. Rochelle is asking what brand of paints. These are golden fluid acrylics. These are my paints of choice that I really like. There we go. I like the fluid acrylics. They have a lot of pigment to them, and I like to do thin layers, so I don't paint with a lot of texture, and the fluid acrylics allow me to do that. And golden just has the best paints. They're just so good. So we got that much brighter tone. Maybe we can use that to lighten up this eyelid. I really wanted that to be lighter. It was too wet for me before. So I'm gonna try to pull that out a little bit more. And I'm excited to see the paintings that you guys are doing at home as you're watching this. Like I mentioned, please post those in the group, Allie's Paint Friends, our free group. And I'm excited because you guys usually have more time, and I know a lot of times you guys work on yours for a while afterwards, so yours usually turn out better than mine. I'm excited to see them. And maybe you'll put a few more little yellowy highlights in the middle of the nose, and then we're going to call this one done. Okay. All right, guys. I think we're gonna call her done. All right. Gonna move in so you can take a closer peek there. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, everyone who has watched my demo here. I am so happy to have you all here watching. I would love for you to share this if you would not mind hitting that share button. I would be super grateful. I hope you guys had fun painting along with me. Again, I'm super excited to see your paintings. And if you want to do this cow, you can watch this as a replay. You can catch the download, or you can grab the download of the outlines, my colors list, and the reference image on my website, Allie K Studio. Look under instruction and online classes, and you will just scroll down to paint alongs and you'll find it. I'm also going to post it in the comments here so that you can easily find it. Thank you all again so much, and I will see you next week, Monday, and we're going to do another farm animal. And again, if you guys have any great farm animal photos, please email those to me. I would love to see them. Maybe I'll pick yours, and then you'll get your download for free. So, all right, thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Take care.